gonna make it. You're not good enough. There's a million other people with the same stuff. You really think you're different? Man, you must be kidding. Think you're gonna hit it, but you just don't get it. It's impossible.
Hey, welcome back to Xaviers podcast for gifted listeners. I'm your host, Grace Shockey. Much like the Marvel timeline, I'm going to be talking about comics completely out of order. Last week I did a brief introduction and a brief review of X-Men Red. This week I'm going to be discussing my second favorite storyline that is also somewhat relatively new, Pheonix Ressurection. Once again, I'll give you a little bit of backstory as to why Jean Grey is such an important character to me and why the Pheonix storyline resonates with me so much. In both the movies and the comics, Jean struggles with control of the Pheonix Force, a cosmic entity that chose her as a host. And when Pheonix takes control, well, bad things happen. It's a rather constant battle for control of her life, her mind, and her body. Growing up with a chronic illness can often feel like a never-ending fight for control as well. In many ways, my illness has become my own personal Pheonix Force. Sure, some things are good that have come from being ill and disabled. I've made wonderful friendships, and the parking is a plus. But it wrecks my body and causes my mental and physical health to suffer pretty greatly. My diseases and disabilities are this force that takes over my body sometimes, and when it does, bad things happen, which is why I connect so strongly to Jean Grey and her story of struggling with the Pheonix. For those of you who are new to the X-Men scene, it can be extremely hard to follow the timeline and stories, so I'll give you a little bit of backstory as I go along. In New X-Men, Jean Grey died at the hands of Magneto, who caused her to have a planetary-level stroke, which is a terribly boring way to die, honestly. She came back briefly during Pheonix Endsong, which I plan to do a whole episode on in the future, where she gained the title of Pheonix of the White Crown, and then proceeded to go to Limbo, or what they call the White Hot Room. With the arrival of the time-displaced original X-Men, I kid you not, these are the stories that they come up with, the Pheonix Force awakens and targets young Jean. Young Jean proceeds to train and rally in preparation for a battle with the Pheonix Force in her own comic series called Jean Grey, which I guarantee I will also probably talk about in the future. Instead of the Pheonix Force using its godlike abilities to resurrect Jean Grey, it goes for young Jean Grey, and then decides, after 12 issues of the Jean Grey series, to go back to its original plan and just resurrect Jean Grey, and create a mini-universe in which Pheonix creates illusions to lure adult and the original Jean Grey into becoming the Pheonix Force once more. During this time, the X-Men are investigating the strange phenomenons that have arose since the resurrection, though they are completely unaware of what has happened, just like a lot of the readers. Jean believes she's working in a diner with her childhood friend Annie. And once again, for those of you who haven't read the comics, Annie was Jean Grey's best friend when they were growing up, and also the beginning of her origin story. Jean was playing frisbee with Annie when Annie gets struck by a car and dies. And as she does, Jean's telepathy kicks in and she merges temporarily with Annie, experiencing all of her thoughts and emotions as she dies. Through Pheonix Ressurection, many people who are dead start to appear in the fake reality. People such as Jean's parents who were killed by the Shi'ar Empire, somewhere along that timeline, to prevent Pheonix from taking over any other people that it would consider the perfect host in the Grey family line. Magneto, who has been dead now in the original timeline, also appears in the fake universe, the original Wolverine, Multiple Man, and her recently deceased husband, Scott Summers. Jean notices that things are off, but she isn't really ready to face what's going on until the 5th installment, when the X-Men are able to get Jean, with the help of Illyana Rasputin, which is Colossus' sister, Magic. It's there that we witness some of my favorite moments of Jean taking control of her own life and destiny and standing up once more for what she believes in. We start with Old Man Logan killing Annie to show Jean that everything she's been seeing is just an illusion. Despite Logan killing Annie, she just stands right back up, and Jean begins to realize that everything is not what it previously seemed. Logan asks her if she remembers who she is as he prepares for the worst, as he's pretty much taken on the role of becoming the mercenary for all things Pheonix related at this point. Jean says she remembers, and boom, she gets a new Pheonix costume. We had seen various versions in the past, such as the green original Pheonix costume, dark Pheonix, white Pheonix, and now we have a black and red Pheonix costume. Pheonix admits to having created a world where all of her loved ones who had died could be alive. Pheonix tells her, "We can make the world whatever we want it to be. You can have whatever you want, attempting to guilt her and manipulate her emotionally into becoming the Pheonix once more. The Pheonix uses illusions of her dead parents and dead husband to try to persuade her, saying that the Pheonix is a god of life and death and she could use the ability to save all the people she has lost. But Jean stands her ground knowing that it's not that easy. Jean then tells Pheonix that it has nothing to offer her, in which Pheonix brings back to life Scott Summers for real. No illusion, no tricks, just the love of her life who died of a virus. Also, a really lame way to go out when you've been fighting for a mutant revolution all your life. Once Jean realizes that Scott is not an illusion, they embrace and kiss. She tells him, "It's not supposed to be this way. We were better off dead." Because she knows this isn't natural. Of course, now we also know why Scott Summers would pick Emma Frost. Because of this isn't how it works. Scott knows this as well, and so he dies. Again. In another really, really lame way. She turns back to Pheonix and says, "I know that was meant to hurt me, but I got to see my husband one last time, and that's all I wanted." And proceeds to tell Pheonix that, "I won't play God with you anymore." It takes a great deal of strength to stand up to a cosmic fiery god. She lost so many people, and who can honestly say if they were given the option to save the people that they love in exchange for being a host to a cosmic god of life and death, that they would turn it down. But Jean knew it wasn't that simple, and that it always comes at some cost. Jean gives an excellent quote of, "All of this, using people, playing with their lives, building fake worlds, it's not right, and it's not fair to do that to me or anyone." She even goes to say that she knew she was supposed to die in the shuttle crash the very first time Pheonix merges with her in space to save her life. She admits that everything that happened after that wasn't meant to be. You keep bringing me back. You want me to be something I'm not," she says. "I'm not sure what your role in the universe is, but it's not with me." And after everything her and the Pheonix have been through, good and bad, mostly a mess, but moments like Pheonix Endsong when they have merged together, it really impacts the fact that Pheonix has always picked Jean Grey as a host, but at what purpose? The Pheonix has become a part of Jean Grey. It adopted her emotions, it brought Jean back from the dead because it actually craved love in Pheonix Endsong. The relationship was intense and unstable, mostly hurting those around her frequently. But then we hear Phoenix's reply, which is probably one of my top tier monologues, not just for the speech, but the art in the panel is incredible, and if you get a chance to look it up, I highly recommend it. The Pheonix offers her a myriad of options, which from the perspective of Jean Grey would all be very tempting. The chance to wipe the slate clean, start over, pretend all the horrible things that have happened never happened. It says, "Don't you understand, Jean Grey? Together we can be gods. Then we can transcend this place, or hide together, or we can become your best self, or we can simply go back to the way things were before any of this. We can forget any of this happened. The choice to go back in time to before things went awry, but at the cost of being the host of the Pheonix Force once more. You're trying to protect me from these things, but you can't. I'm supposed to feel pain. I'm supposed to know loss, and I need to be able to do that on my own." And then the Pheonix threatens and warns her that without the Pheonix, Jean will die, and all of the people she loves will also die. To which Jean responds, "That's life. It'll hurt, sure, but life isn't easy and it's not supposed to be this way. I don't want to die, but I need to be allowed to live." And tells the Pheonix that she isn't what the Pheonix wants. And it works. The Pheonix leaves. Jean probably feels like she lost a part of herself, not to mention lost the false world that she had been living in from issues 1 to 4, and just lost her husband. Again. And then turns around in an X-Men Red, takes a job of becoming a UN ambassador for the Mutant Nation, loses her son in extermination, and deals with Cassandra Nova in very short time. This is why I would consider Jean to be the most valuable mutant, or MVM, and her choices are ones that really make you think about what you would do if given the choices she was given. Extremely hard choices to make, and when it comes down to it, she chose to be selfless and live with the loss and pain rather than risk giving into the Pheonix Force and hurting others. A lesson I think we can all walk away with. So I want to thank you for listening to tonight's episode, and stay tuned for next week's episode of Xaviers Podcast for Gifted Listeners. You can find me on Facebook and let me know what you think or what you might like to hear discussed or reviewed. Until next time, goodbye!